Hi, I'm Becky Lyons. Welcome to Jesus Speaks in the Book of Mormon and in Dreams. So today we're reading Jacob 5. I don't know about you, but I always used to skip Jacob 5 when I would read the Book of Mormon. But anyway, so I'm going to read a little bit from the Come Follow Me manual to explain what it's all about. I always thought it was really boring, but it's really not. It's all about gathering scattered Israel. I'm going to do 3 parts of it, and it's all about, so Christ is the Lord of the vineyard, and it's all about us gathering scattered Israel to him. So it's Jacob 5 is called the allegory of the olive tree. And so what's happening in Jacob 5 is Jacob remembers, so remember that Jacob is Nephi's younger brother that was born in the wilderness. So Nephi's already died. Jacob is in possession of the plates, but he's not the ruler. He is going to quote the prophet Zenos, who is the one who wrote the allegory of the olive tree. So it's Zenos who first wrote the allegory of the olive tree. He told the allegory of the olive tree. Jacob's going to write that. But first of all, coming from this perspective, an allegory is basically a really, really long comparison between two things. So, you know, most of us know about similes and metaphors. They're much shorter, but allegories are a lot longer than a sentence. So these are two things we're comparing here. Zenos is comparing the vineyard of the olive trees to the past and the ultimate fate of the house of Israel. Then he's using this comparison of the vineyard of the olive trees to tell us about the house of Israel and what will happen in the future for the house of Israel, which is us. It's going to tell us now. There's so much more you can dive into in this Jacob chapter 5. But these are a few common interpretations of these comparisons. So it's all about the history of the house of Israel. So as you approach reading this allegory, first of all, the vineyard itself is a comparison for the world. That one's easy, right? And the master of the vineyard, of course, is Jesus Christ. Then you're going to hear a lot about branches. Some branches are groups of people, different people that are called branches. So if they're taking a branch and moving a branch, we're talking about groups of people that are being moved or being converted to the Lord or whatever. It's a group of people. Servants are the prophets, but also anyone who's working with the Lord and to bringing in Israel, who's gathering Israel to help him out in the vineyard. Then the servant, we have the tame olive trees. Tame olive trees are the house of Israel, people who are members of the house of Israel, descendants of Israel, Jacob and all of his sons. That is the tame olive tree. And then a wild olive tree would be anyone who's not in the house of Israel, known as the Gentiles. Gentiles are someone who's not in the house of Israel. So the tame is the wild Gentile. I messed up. Let me go back. So the tame is the olive of Israel, is the wild, is a Gentile who is not in the house of Israel, someone who has not been adopted into the house of Israel. And then there's a few actions that take place we want to make sure that you are aware of here. So if an olive tree is decaying, the olive tree, that refers to an apostasy that's decaying, right? There's going to be times when someone is going to graft in wild branches into a tame olive tree. So think about every time you're taking wild branches, aka a group of people who are not in the house of Israel, then they're going to graft it into the house of Israel. That means they're being baptized in. They're talking about groups of people who are being baptized in or converted or adopted into the house of Israel, people who are changing from a wild olive tree to the tame olive tree, being part of the Lord's covenant people. So that's cool to think about that. There's going to be times when it talks about how the master transplants some branches to other trees into distant parts of the vineyard. So if branches of a tame olive tree are groups of people from the house of Israel, this is known as a scattering of Israel. The scattering of Israel and tame branches are taken away off into far places of the vineyard, and then kind of the reverse is that when there is a final nourishing and pruning and grafting, that's going to happen. That is referring to the restoration, the final last days right now. Then that will happen in the future. So I hope that helps you go into Jacob 5. And the Lord is very concerned about his vineyard, and he really wants to help to keep it tame. He wants all the branches to become tame. He's going to do what he can to with these tame branches and the wild branches and decaying branches and all that stuff to save the servants. They're going to come in and try to save the vineyard, and then that's the fate, and ultimately the rest are burned in the field in the allegory, which represents like the celestial people being burned before the second coming. And then this allegory in chapter 5, so anyway, that's that part of it. And then I'm going to read for you the from our chapter and the Come Follow Me before I start reading Jacob 5. So once again, the Jacob 5, it's all about gathering Israel to God and to Jesus Christ. And then the Lord of the vineyard is Jesus Christ, who's gathering Israel. And then I wanted to start off with this quote by President Russell M. Nelson. He says, "So how do we gather Israel on both sides of the veil?" And this is what President Nelson says. President Russell M. Nelson taught, "Anytime you do anything that helps anyone on either side of the veil take a step towards making covenants with God and receiving their essential baptismal and temple ordinances, you are helping to gather scattered Israel. It is just as simple as that. Consider starting a list of ideas that you can do to help to gather Israel. From your list, what would you feel the Lord would have you do today in his vineyard?" So there are many, many people who haven't heard the gospel of Jesus Christ. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by the immensity of the task of gathering Israel to the Lord and to his church, what Jacob said about the olive trees is in Jacob 5 is a reassuring reminder to us. The vineyard belongs to the Lord. He has given each of us a small area to assist in his work of gathering Israel to him. Our family, our circle of friends, our sphere of influence. And sometimes the first person we help to gather Israel to is ourselves. We gather ourselves to Israel. We gather ourselves to Jesus Christ. I mean, we are Israel and we're gathering ourselves to Christ. But we are never alone in this work, for the Lord of the vineyard labors alongside his servants. God knows and loves his children, and he will prepare a way for each of them to hear his gospel, even those who have rejected him in the past. And then when the work is all done, all who have been diligent in laboring with him will have joy with the Lord because of the fruit of his vineyard. So Jesus Christ is the Lord of the vineyard. Jacob 5 is a story with symbolic meaning. It describes trees and fruit and laborers, but it's really about God's interactions with his people throughout history. So as you read this basic story, think about what the things symbolize. So the vineyard represents the world, the tame olive trees represents Israel, and the wild olive trees represent the Gentiles. Even though Jacob 5 teaches us about the nations and the centuries of world history, it's also about you and your life. So Jacob 5 is really about Jesus Christ gathering Israel and us helping him gather Israel. So the Lord invites you and me to labor with him in his vineyard. The other servants in Jacob 5:70 who were called into the Lord's vineyard include people like you and me, and all about us working with the Lord in his vineyard. So as you read about the last time that the Lord labors in his vineyard, that's us in the last days. We're in the last of the last days before Jesus comes. So it's talking about us gathering Israel to Jesus in the last time. The Lord labors in his vineyard. What inspires you to serve the Lord with all your heart, mind, and soul? Maybe you can think of a personal experience in your life in which you felt joy while serving the Lord of the vineyard. For example, through sharing the gospel, serving in the temple, or through strengthening others and loving and serving others. You might also explore the examples of Gary E. Stevenson when he shared his message, Simply Beautiful. So that would be a really good idea to make out a list of how you are gathering Israel to Christ. So like President Nelson said, anytime you help anyone keep their covenants to Christ, you are gathering Israel. And so when you share the gospel or just bring others to Christ in any way and bringing people back to their covenants and back to Christ, we're gathering Israel on this side of the veil. And then when we go to the temple and we do works for our dead at the temple, we do ordinances for them, then we are gathering scattered Israel on the other side of the veil. So anyway, we'll go ahead and start Jacob 5 and we'll read to verse 28 today. I just wanted to go over that in the beginning because a lot of people don't even really I didn't even really get what it is about besides gathering Israel. And so it really helps to kind of go over what it's about first. So we'll read the beginning here. Jacob quotes Zenos relative to the allegory of the tame and the wild olive trees. Their likeness of Israel and the Gentiles, the scattering and the gathering of Israel are prefigured. Allusions are made to the Nephites and Lamanites, and all about the house of Israel. Gentiles shall be grafted into Israel. Eventually the vineyard shall be burned. Behold, my brothers and sisters, do you not remember to have read the words of the prophet Zenos, which he spake unto the house of Israel, saying, Hearken, O ye house of Israel, and hear the words of me, a prophet of the Lord. For behold, thus saith the Lord, I will liken thee, O house of Israel, like unto the tame olive tree, which a man took and nourished in his vineyard. And it grew and waxed old and began to decay. The master of the vineyard went forth, and he saw that the olive tree began to decay, and he said, I will prune it, and I will dig about it, and I will nourish it, that perhaps the tree may shoot forth young and tender branches, and it will perish and die not. He pruned it, he digged about it, and he nourished it according to his word. After many days it began to put forth somewhat a little young and tender branch, but behold, the main top thereof began to perish and die. The master of the vineyard saw it, and he said unto his servant, It grieves me that I should lose this tree. Wherefore go and pluck the branches from the wild olive tree, and bring them hither to me, and we will pluck off those main branches which are beginning to wither away. We will cast them into the fire, that they may be burned. And behold, thus saith the Lord of the vineyard, I take away many of these young and tender branches, and I will graft them back in whithersoever I will. It matters not that if it shall be that the root of the tree will perish. I may preserve the fruit unto myself, wherefore I will take these young and tender branches, and I will graft them whithersoever I will. Take the branches of the wild olive tree, and graft them in the stead thereof, and these which I have plucked off I will cast in the fire and burn them, that they may not cumber the ground of my vineyard. The servant of the Lord of the vineyard did according to the word of the Lord of the vineyard, and grafted in the branches of the wild olive tree. The Lord of the vineyard caused that it should be digged and pruned and nourished, saying unto his servant, It grieves me that I should lose this tree. Wherefore that I might preserve the roots thereof, that they may perish not, that I might preserve them unto myself, I have done this thing. Wherefore go thy way, watch the tree, and nourish it according to my words. And these will I place in the nethermost part of my vineyard, whithersoever I will. It mattereth not unto thee, and I do it that I may preserve unto myself the natural branches of the tree, also that I may lay up fruit therefore against the season unto myself. For it grieves me that I should lose this tree and all the fruit thereof. The Lord of the vineyard went his way, and hid the natural branches of the tame olive tree in the nethermost parts of the vineyard, some in one spot and some in another spot, according to his will and pleasure. That a long time passed away, and the Lord of the vineyard said unto his servant, Come, let us go down into the vineyard, that we may labor in the vineyard. The Lord of the vineyard and also the servant went down into the vineyard to labor. And it came to pass, the servant said unto his master, Behold, look here, behold, and look at the tree. The Lord of the vineyard looked and beheld the tree in which the wild olive branches had been grafted in, and it had sprung forth and began to bear fruit. And he beheld that it was good fruit, and the fruit thereof was like unto the natural fruit. And he said unto the servant, Behold, the branches of the wild tree have taken hold of the moisture of the roots thereof, that the roots thereof have brought forth much strength. And because of the much strength of the root thereof, the wild branches have now brought forth tame fruit. Now if we had not grafted in these branches, the tree thereof would have perished and died. And now, behold, I shall lay up much fruit, which the tree thereof hath brought forth, and the fruit thereof I shall lay up against the season unto my own self. The Lord of the vineyard said unto the servant, Come, let us go to the nethermost part of the vineyard. And behold, if the natural branches of the tree have not brought forth much fruit, that I may lay up the fruit thereof against the season unto my own self. That they went forth whither the master had hid the natural branches of the tree. And he said unto the servant, Behold these. And he brought the first, which has brought forth much fruit. And he beheld that it was good. And he said unto the servant, Take of the fruit thereof, and lay it up against the seasons, that I may preserve it unto my own self. For behold, said he, the long time I have nourished it, it hath brought forth much good fruit. Then the servant said unto his master, How comest thou hither to plant this tree, or this branch of this tree? For behold, it was a poor spot in all the land of the vineyard. The Lord of the vineyard said unto him, Counsel me not, I knew that it was a poor spot of the ground. Wherefore I said unto thee, I have nourished it for this long time, and thou beholdest that it has brought forth much good fruit. The Lord of the vineyard said unto his servant, Look hither. Behold, I have planted another branch of the tree also, and thou knowest that this spot of the ground was poorer than the first. But behold, the tree, I have nourished it a long time, and it has brought forth much good fruit. Therefore gather it, and lay it up against the season, that I may preserve it unto my own self. And it came to pass, the Lord of the vineyard said again unto his servant, Look hither, and behold, another branch also, which I have planted. Behold, that I have nourished it also, and it hath brought forth much good fruit. And he said unto his servant, Look hither. Behold, the last. Behold, this I have planted in a good spot on the ground. And I have nourished it. This long time, and only a part of the tree hath brought forth the tame fruit, and the other part of the tree hath brought forth the wild fruit. Behold, I have nourished this other tree like unto the others. The Lord of the vineyard The Lord of the vineyard said unto his servant, Pluck off the branches that have not brought forth good fruit, and cast them into the fire. But behold, the servant said unto him, Let us prune it, let us dig about it, and nourish it a little longer, that perhaps it may bring forth good fruit unto thee, and thou canst lay it up against the season. The Lord of the vineyard and the servant of the Lord of the vineyard did nourish all of the fruit of the vineyard. So we're going to stop right there, and then we'll read, we'll do it in 2 more parts, because it's so long. So gather scattered Israel on this side of the veil and the other side of the veil, and pray and ask God what you can do to gather Israel back to him and back to Jesus Christ. I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.